Good afternoon and welcome to the Whitley Penn Talks podcast. I'm your host for the day, Jason Fitzgerald. I'm a manager in the minerals department here at Whitley Penn. I'm joined by Sam Cadigan from MineralWare, episode 1 of our minerals series. So, Sam, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Sam, why don't we start off with telling us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, college, where you obviously live now. Tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, absolutely. So like Jason said, I'm Sam Cadigan, so I'm the Vice President of Unique Assets at MineralWare. Originally, I'm from Oklahoma City, but came down to Fort Worth, where we live now, for college. I went to TCU, where I studied finance. Yep, go Frogs. Studied finance with a leadership emphasis with a minor in energy technology and management.
Nice.
So that's kind of how I ended up in Fort Worth, and 10 years later, here we are.
So you've been at MineralWare a while now. How did you find MineralWare? Like, what stumbled you to that?
Yeah, so I was originally interning at XTO Energy when they were still here in Fort Worth, and one of the good friends from college who was also at XTO at the time had left XTO and went to this little startup called MineralWare. Our buddy and I had a great relationship and was kind of talking about it, and the next summer kind of rolled around and I was looking for an internship, and our buddy Clay ended up getting me in touch with the head guys at MineralWare. And
the Heinzelman and
Ben Heinzelman and
Ryan.
Ryan, and so here we are about 7 years later.
Nice. Those are some good days at MineralWare. For those of you that don't know, I had a little stint at MineralWare prior to Whitley Penn, and Sam and I became great friends and still get to work together daily now for all the Whitley Penn mineral management and MineralWare. It's a big part of that. So located in Fort Worth with MineralWare, right across the street from us here in Frost Tower. How many staff are y'all up to now?
So we're up to 14 now.
Okay.
So we've got about 4 or 5 that are here in the DFW kind of Metroplex area. And then we've got most of our in-house developers are remote. So 1 in Houston, 2 in Colorado, and then 1 in Iowa.
Man, so come a long way since the early days.
Yeah,
I think we had 5 or 6 guys in the office over there.
Absolutely.
So kind of the main question, I guess, is what does MineralWare do in a nutshell? I know what it does for us, and we'll get to talk about that here in a minute, but what is the main purpose of MineralWare?
Yeah, so originally MineralWare was started to help those that own or manage mineral and non-op working interest in kind of a more concise asset management way. So the original founder of the company was working at a bank, and at the time got tasked with trying to find a software to help the bank's management be more efficient, more concise, more clear. And whenever he went out to the market, he kind of realized that there wasn't anything that had all those pieces. So inevitably, he kind of broke off and started what MineralWare is. And so that was kind of how it started. Was there's kind of 2 sides to it, or 3 at this point. So land management, so being able to kind of see and know what an individual or a manager owns or is managing, and there's also a revenue tracking component. So making sure that the owners and managers are getting paid what they're supposed to. So there's kind of some auditing tools, and then there's also some joint interest billing, tracking, so all the working interest type stuff, making sure that invoices get paid on time, kind of stuff like that.
So and that was y'all started it in 2014, 15. It was like the early days, and I was there for a little bit. But
so we're 10 years now, which is kind of crazy to think about.
Yeah, that's come a long way since then. Here's a kind of a funner or more fun question, but what's your favorite thing about working at MineralWare?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Y'all have a pretty cool office.
We do have a very cool office. So we office in the Fort Worth Club, which is right across the street from Whitley Penn here in the Frost Tower. So it was a long trek over here. But, that's definitely been good. And also just kind of really learning about the land management side of things has been really interesting. And having kind of the software component to it is definitely something I didn't envision myself doing, but I've really found interest in it.
Yeah, I agree 100%. So say I'm a mineral owner that has inherited assets. Why should I use MineralWare?
Yeah.
What's the advantage of using that?
So typically in situations, which this is something that we see pretty often, somebody, grandparent will have kind of kept all of their records on, in shoe boxes and, banker boxes. And ultimately when, the next generation takes over, the successors and all that might not have a great knowledge of oil and gas and all of that. So MineralWare hopefully helps make that a little bit easier in kind of understanding, where and what somebody owns. So we spend a lot of time. We've got a full, client success training team going through, and sometimes it'd be someone that doesn't even know, anything about oil and gas. So trying to explain to them not only the principles of oil and gas, this is what you should be looking at, but then having the software component to try and make that easy is definitely something that's important for, people who might not have great knowledge, but also those that do have great knowledge in it. We always say you can kind of make the system as simple or as complex as you want.
Definitely.
You can really dig down deep into the details, or kind of have a big, holistic view.
Right, and I think we at Whitley Penn, we kind of do a little bit of both. So I think something that we do that is pretty unique in this is we use MineralWare. It's so integrated in every single process that we have, from processing revenue on a daily basis, reconciling to the bank accounts. Then you have the whole land management component of it. So all the well data, we use all of that on a daily basis, monitoring permits and rig data, suspended funds searching. We have a cool setup on where we have all of our accounts individually mapped. That you helped me set this up, but we use that where we have them individually mapped, but then we have an aggregate Whitley Penn map where we can go in as managers. If, say, we're leasing a certain section, and we can see what leasing activity we have in nearby sections, and then can kind of compare those back and forth. So I think that's a really cool tool that we use a lot, that sometimes maybe is overlooked. Something we do too that I don't think people can realize that they can do is they can have a manager like us in place, and so we have our own logins where we can kind of see all the accounts that we manage and all the wells and assets and everything. But we also give our clients access. So I think that's the beauty in the partnership. The way we structured our arrangement is where we'll actually go in and give our clients read-only access and use it more like an owner portal rather than just a legacy land management system. So I think that's the kind of the difference in MineralWare and a lot of other options on the market, is that flexibility and transparency that we can roll in, and I know that's a huge plus for us and our clients.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, kind of back to that, clarity thing, for somebody who might not understand it, or they want, leave it to the professionals, which, Whitley Penn are, being able to kind of see the front end interface. They can see what they own, what wells they're being paid on. They can see their revenue, but they're not really responsible for doing a whole lot in the system, but they can kind of see it in easy graphs, easy to read things. Can kind of track their revenue, all that stuff. So.
Yeah, and I think that even that, you go into like the notes and stuff too. When you're making notes on tracks and you've got all the documents tied in there, so that owner can then pop in and see exactly what everybody else is working on and remember right where they left off, or the manager can remember right where they left off previously. So, like I said, that's integrated in our daily management. I mean, we got to be up there and ingrained in how we use it.
I can probably tell you. I might have to look that up.
Yeah,
see how our users are. But yeah, that's a great point. I mean,
we're definitely logging up there in time.
With as complex as the oil and gas industry is, having something that can try and keep it organized, which is really kind of what we're striving to do, is take a really complex term or situation and then make it really easy, visual, for people to be able to quickly see our clients' range and all sorts of technical abilities, from people in their 80s and 90s who don't have a ton of technical expertise, all the way down to people as young as Jason who are power users. So.
Right. So a couple more things here. You mentioned you work with individuals, and I think we've kind of covered how they use the platform, kind of the legacy asset that's been passed down, and It's easy to track. You got the map, you got the wells, you got all the revenue data, one stop. What's the benefit for a mineral buyer or a professional mineral buyer? Say they're PE backed, or maybe they got a family office backing them. Why do they use the software, and what do you see them using the most?
Yeah, so we've got pretty good handful of clients that would be kind of exactly that. So the acquisition groups. So there's definitely the side of keeping everything organized. So people that are kind of in the acquisition and divestiture space kind of know how quick it can move sometimes. So having all of that stuff organized, you've gone through and made acquisitions, and putting all your documents together, mapping each one of those acquisitions and tracking revenue. So if it's on a ROI type basis, you can kind of track all of that stuff. We've got some tools in the system to make that easier. As well as, down the road, if they ever decide to sell their whole package, it's really easy. Everything's organized, all their information's there. So, whenever the buyer might be doing their due diligence, the seller is really able to kind of quickly gather all of that stuff, which might not be the situation in some cases in some sales. So that's definitely what some people use it for in that side. And then there's also those that actively acquire with no intention of selling, and it just they would be treated like a normal what we would call bread and butter client.
And I think for them, when you're passing down to like the next generation, like you're leaving it in a better situation than what you found it at typically, because typically you're going to find a box full of filing cabinets and it's just super unorganized, whereas MineralWare makes it really organized and puts it all together.
Yeah, it's grim to say, but I've been here 7 years, and we've had clients, some of the older generation pass away, and their kids will take over, and I think a couple years ago had someone say, "Man, I don't know where we'd be without you guys."
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Having all that stuff organized for future generations is a huge plus.
And then back to the buyers, I think the biggest complaint we hear in the professional buyer space for minerals is when you do go at that time to divest that asset, it's scramble, all hands on deck. Everybody's looking for deeds and leases and closing docs, and you're working through the due diligence, trying to get it all into a data room. Whereas MineralWare, if you set it up correctly, which we kind of do this on our end too, is you've got the shape files, you've got your net interest, you've got all the wells backing it, you've got it all tied together with all of your conveyance docs and title all tied into one spot, to where it's a simple click of a few buttons and package it all together and you're off to sell it. So I think that's the biggest complaint we hear for those PE-backed groups and professional buyers, and I think MineralWare does a great job of accomplishing that.
Yeah, and one other part of that is back to next generation family planning. We see situations, as I'm sure the Whitley Penn team does as well, where people are taking assets and putting them into a trust, or doing stuff like that. And what's great is especially if you were already a client, you already know exactly what you were getting paid. So as those transfers go through, I mean, when you put the volume together, it could be a lot at once.
Right.
So being able to reconcile, what you were getting paid, what decimals, all of that, who was paying you, and then being able to see as those transfers go through to kind of make sure, checks and balances are there, and everything does get transferred properly, is a huge benefit.
And I think to that point, just as simple as preparing the deed to be recorded in the county and getting an inventory, I can't tell you how many deeds and conveyances that we've come across that either don't convey everything or leave things off, or they're just not great.
All kinds of stuff. Yep.
So MineralWare does a great job of preventing that. So here's kind of a fun question for you. What's your favorite feature or tool to use on MineralWare, and why?
Ooh, that's a good question. So probably about a year ago, one of our big priorities, to take a step back, has been kind of reworking the way the software functions.
Okay.
So in the past, and Jason will remember this from a couple years ago, we would get a request from a client, we would build a feature to handle that particular thing. So
we'd get a lot of those.
Now we're taking a step back and saying, okay, we can do A, B, and C. Why not build something that can do all of that at once?
Right.
Which is a big time saver. It's less places to go to get a piece of information. So we recently finished kind of a redo of our whole revenue tracking system.
Mm-hmm.
So that's probably my favorite part of what we're doing. So really easily being able to deep dive into every type of revenue situation. I know Jason was emailing us yesterday about some stuff that had come in incorrect on a check, and being able to kind of quickly and easily see that from that module is a huge benefit, and that's what we love to see.
Well, we use it. That was going to be my answer too. Is I use that daily. Like we use it in so many different facets too. Whether it's monitoring price, realized price back to the check, and then what's like the WTI or Brent spot price for that month. Filtering it to reconcile really quickly, looking for anomalies and deductions, like all of that jumps off the page at you really. So we're able to take a large asset and do that efficiently and quickly and find those anomalies and figure out if it's a data issue, we just need to go back and correct it, or if there's a bigger underlying issue, which a lot of times there's a bigger underlying issue that we're going in and looking at. So that was going to be my answer. I mean, it's spot on. That revenue tool is really good. And just the ease of it is awesome.
That's what we're striving for is ease of use.
That's all good. So why should someone use MineralWare versus like any other tools in the market? Like what's the big thing for MineralWare?
Yeah, so when it comes to mineral management as a whole, there's obviously there's some other products out there. There's other tools you can use. Some people prefer to manage their stuff in Excel. And that's perfectly fine.
And sometimes assets require that. Like if they're small, like 1 or 2 tracks, then you probably can go, find something else or find an Excel sheet and do it that way. I mean,
absolutely. But I mean, a couple of things, even Jason's brought up. So, first off in mineral management, the most important thing is making sure you're getting paid correctly. You want to make sure you're getting paid on everything you're supposed to. So Jason brought up the suspended funds point. So we all the time, and I know Jason specifically uses that MineralWare to recover suspended funds often. I think at this point
found a lot
with MineralWare, I don't even know their total, but we've heard about or recovered on our own over $3 million in suspense across a wide array of situations. So that's definitely a huge benefit. And then also making sure month over month you're getting paid what you're supposed to. So the MineralWare team itself is we're there to help those that might not be the experts in mineral management. Sometimes they'll say, what should we be doing? So we're happy to help. We've got a great client services team that will sit on the phone with you for hours on end and help explain a situation or something like that.
They probably get pretty tired of me. Hopefully not too tired. I feel like I send a lot of emails, but it's a testament to y'all and how responsive and everything gets. If there's any issues, it gets resolved. Everybody's very, very eager to help. So a couple more things. So where do you see MineralWare heading, say in the next 5 years? Is there any new features to tease maybe coming out? What's the dev team working on? Any big exciting changes like that?
So really the most exciting thing that we're hoping will be released here within the next month or so is, so I kind of brought up the revenue tracking system, doing a whole redo. So we did the same thing with land.
Okay.
So when I say land,
that's exciting.
I mean, tracking, where you own, all the wells, the organization of, your net acres, gross acres, leases, all the wells. So we really took some of that same, back end product of the revenue side and applied it to the land side.
So I remember right on the revenue page, you took it where it was a bunch of different drop downs in a page and you consolidated them all together where you can toggle back and forth.
That's exactly right. So that's basically what we're doing with the land side right now.
Okay.
We've been working on that for probably the last 3 or 4 months.
Nice.
So we're excited to get that out here pretty soon. So that's the first thing, and then the next thing we're going to tackle after that is one of the most important things I'd say in mineral management, which is making sure that the operators are paying you what you're supposed to based on the volumes. So we're working to acquire a new data set to automate the process of reconciling the state reported production and the check reported production. So those that understand that, it can be a bit of problem, especially the way that stuff is reported in Texas specifically versus how it's reported on the check. So sometimes it's kind of hard to
lease basis, not allocated.
Yeah. So we're working on first off getting that data set, and then hopefully making a really easy way that somebody can come in, see their check, and have it automatically flag if there's any discrepancies, which as a manager and owner, it's 100% something you should go investigate, because we see those things happen all the time.
So something that's similar to that you already do is like the interest comparison, where it reads the check every month, and if there's any discrepancy in the NRI on the well, like your decimal in the well, the system flags that and sends you an alert where you can go in and then view like what's going on there. That's something that we use. I get an email to my inbox every morning before I get to the office that shows me like if there's any new permits, if there's any changes in the revenue, if there's any new checks coming in. So just that ease of, you can't do that on a manual basis.
Yeah, it would take a lot of time. It would take a lot of time.
That's impossible. So. Some of these checks are 300 pages long.
And those with a lot of volume, it would take a while. You would need several full-time people to do that process.
Yeah, it creates a lot of efficiency. Yeah. So what's like one long-term goal? You have you're revamping, I think you kind of mentioned it at the beginning, but going in and revamping a lot of kind of the legacy software that's there and just making it spruced up and better and more efficient and move like a 2024 software, not a 2014. Would you say that's like the long-term goal, or is there anything else?
Yeah, so it'll never be a perfect product in my eyes. We're constantly going to be working on it.
Right.
We built a great system, and now it's just let's make it better. So there'll be new features that come out. There'll be situations in the oil and gas industry that change. So we'll have to adapt with that. So that's something. But one thing we are starting to kind of work through is looking at other asset types.
Okay.
So kind of working
Explain more on that.
Like the real estate space. So from a management perspective, those that own real estate, manage real estate properties, being able to kind of easily track some of those things. And there's not a whole lot of difference between oil and gas and real estate. There are a lot of the same principles, a lot of the same stuff gets tracked, a lot of the same rules. So that's something we're looking into getting into probably in the next 5 years. But yeah, for the next year or two or so, we're going to continue working on the MineralWare product, as well as trying to make processes easier for people, more API connecting with other systems and stuff to kind of continually make things easier for people. So that's something that we're definitely exploring.
Well, it seems like now with this day and age, all the softwares have a tendency with these APIs outward facing to where you can go connect them all together and they all talk to each other and they create so much efficiency. So I think that would be a great path.
Yeah, we are. So MineralWare as a company, we sold about 2.5 years ago.
Right.
So our parent company owns a couple other products that have been in the space for a long time. So we're also working on connecting some of those things together. Some of those other products have some really powerful accounting tools, valuation tools, things that we don't have a ton of experience with, especially on the valuation side.
Yeah.
So that's definitely something that we're trying to leverage as well. As their expertise.
I was going to ask you about that SS&C. So I was there for a brief stint there, kind of right when that whole part was taking place. But that's got to give you a ton of resources. That company's massive. They have a ton of really good software that's used in the trust world and wealth management. Specifically, I'm thinking of like some of the Black Diamond that's a sharp software that is used throughout the country, maybe even world, to do the wealth management and financial planning, etc. Yeah,
so it's definitely a big company with tons of resources, tons of different products, and all kinds of different sectors within healthcare, banks, trust, unique assets, which would be what MineralWare is a part of. Okay. But yeah, so Black Diamond is a great software. It's a great product, and that's kind of what we're aspiring to become.
Right. Yeah. Well, good. So I guess a final question would be, what's one long-term goal you have personally? MineralWare aside, what's Sam shooting for? I know you have a little one at home now. Congratulations.
Yeah, so my wife and we just had our first baby back in December.
Little Livy.
Yeah, Olivia. So we're staying busy with that. But yeah, 5 years from now, hopefully we'll have 5 kids.
Oh man.
Don't tell Sam that, but my wife's name is also Sam.
Yeah, that's a fun fact about Sam Cadigan. His wife's name is also Sam Cadigan.
But yeah, no, I mean, we're 5 years, hopefully we'll have another kid by then or so.
Nice.
We love Fort Worth. So
yeah. Don't see yourself leaving anytime soon.
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
Where it's a good middle ground for us.
Well, good. Well, I enjoyed the talk. How do people get in contact with you? Tell us about MineralWare. Where do we go to get in contact? Demos are free.
Yep, absolutely. So yeah, we've got multiple business development people that are happy to sit down with anyone who wants to see the software and get a demo. I'm sure my contact information will be put into the description of this. Yeah. So, but yeah, that's definitely probably the best way to get in touch with us. Call us, email us anytime.
And I think I always used to tell people this is the demos are free. There's a bunch of videos and content they can send you over. Just if you're on the fence about using it, maybe you think it's too pricey for you or you don't really know if you need it or not, it's worth taking a look to see what you can get out of it and talk to a professional with it. Your eyes will probably be opened if you haven't seen it before.
Yeah, so. Absolutely. And yeah, we do custom pricing plans. Basically, every agreement is unique. So, everything, we're flexible on some things. We want to make the software be beneficial for both sides. So,
win-win for sure.
Absolutely.
Well, thanks for joining, and hopefully we get to do this again in the future and look forward to keep working with you and MineralWare.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thank you all for having me.